Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Is there a roll call, please?
The record will reflect all council members are present. Councilmember Daigle is just away from her seat at the moment.
Is there a closed session report?
The city attorney is talking with Councilmember Daigle, actually.
Oh, okay. I think the answer is, well, I don't know. Let's wait for the answer. So the question was, is there a closed session report?
I'm sorry. I was speaking with Councilmember Daigle regarding another issue. There's no closed session report this evening, and I apologize for being tardy.
Thank you very much. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilmember Petros. And please remain standing for the invocation. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Our Father and God, we gather this week to remember our countrymen, those in Boston and those in the town of West Texas, for the first responders, for all of the medical personnel, and for all of the heartbreak that has been visited upon these communities. It's really been visited upon us all. Help us to learn from it, to resolve to protect our country, to resolve to love our fellow man. Give us wisdom in tonight's meeting that we might guide our city well and serve all of our citizens. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay. Presentations. Is Greg Schwink here in the audience? All right. Greg may come a little bit later. Let me invite forward, if I could, to Dr. Brown from Hoag Hospital. Are you here? Excellent. Why don't you come up to the podium, and I'm going to read this resolution, then we'll come down. This is regarding National Stroke Awareness Month. Whereas, on behalf of the citizens of Newport Beach, I am pleased to join Hoag Hospital in celebrating May 2013 as National Stroke Awareness Month in Newport Beach. Whereas, acknowledging May 2003 offers individuals in the stroke treatment community an opportunity to educate the public and policy members about the effectiveness of treatment and prevention of stroke. And whereas stroke is a major public health problem that affects millions of Americans of all ages, races, and ethnic backgrounds, and in all communities, and which has a huge medical, societal, and economic cost. And whereas thousands of healthcare providers have dedicated their lives to the treatment, prevention, and education of the public about stroke and stroke risk factors. And whereas the American Heart and Stroke Association and Hoag Hospital invite all residents of Newport Beach to participate in National Stroke Awareness Month. Now, I, therefore, Keith Curry, on behalf of the entire City Council, proclaim May 2013 as National Stroke Awareness Month. Doctor, would you like to make a few comments?
Yes, I've got a short presentation.
Excellent.
Doctor, I have to ask, do you do robotic surgery?
There we go.
Thanks for this opportunity. Go ahead and roll the next slide. All right, so just to be clear, stroke is a neurological disorder where the brain is affected either by a blood clot that blocks off an artery, causing damage to that part of the brain, or a bleeding area that causes damage to the brain. It's an incredibly important problem in America. 795,000 strokes in the U.S. every year, leaving about 4 million Americans living with neurological deficits due to stroke. It's the fourth leading cause of death in the United States. It used to be the third leading cause, recently changed to fourth. It still remains the second leading cause of death worldwide. Mortality from a stab wound is only about 5% compared to stroke, which is about 15 to 20%. It's not just a disease of elderly men. It affects all ages, all sexes. In fact, more women die from stroke than from breast cancer. In fact, a lot more women. But probably most importantly, it's the leading cause of long-term disability worldwide. But unfortunately, only about 5% of ischemic strokes are treated with life-saving measures such as IV or intraarterial TPA or clot-busting mechanisms. And even in state-of-the-art facilities such as ours at Hoag Hospital, we're only treating about 15% of these that come to us. About 80% of strokes are preventable, and this is a stroke risk scorecard, and I'd encourage everybody interested, they can either log on to National Stroke Association or hoaghospital.org and log in stroke, and they can assess what their risk factor for stroke is. But in short, you have to know your blood pressure. If it's high, get it treated. Find out if you have atrial fibrillation, which is a risk factor for blood clots causing stroke from the heart. If you smoke, stop. Find out if you have high cholesterol, get it treated. If diabetic, follow recommendations to control diabetes. Include exercise in your daily routine. And eat a healthy diet, including low sodium and low fat. And also be aware of stroke symptoms, including we usually teach a mnemonic called FAST, or face, arm, speech, time. Face, ask the person to smile. Does one side of their face droop? Arms, ask the person to raise both arms, see if one drifts down or if they can't lift that arm. Speech, ask the person to repeat a simple sentence. Do they slur? Are they unable to repeat the sentence? If so, remember T for time. Call 911. The patient will be brought to an Orange County Stroke Receiving Center and get immediate therapy. Initially, there's usually an area that we can save by giving clot-busting medications or techniques, but as time drags on, that becomes a permanent stroke that's no longer able to be saved. This was a really nice movie I had that's not working. But in short, there are techniques where you can give clot-busting agents in the vein, or techniques where they can guide a catheter or a small tube up to the clot in the brain and actually pull the clots out. At Hoag, we've been able to dramatically impact the care of these patients, and we're treating about 15% of all patients. We've also worked with Orange County EMS officials to organize into Orange County Stroke Receiving Centers, and of those patients, we're treating 45% of those patients with thrombolytic therapies. This has resulted in 60% of our patients having no or minimal deficit at 90 days, which is nationwide pretty dramatic. But even at our center, that means 85% of patients are not being treated. The number one reason they're not treated is they don't recognize the symptoms, they don't activate the 911 system, and they don't get treated in the acute period.
So you're saying it's not 15% of the people that come to you? I mean...
So we treat 15% of all patients. So in other words, some people come in 2 weeks after their stroke, and obviously they're not candidates. Of those that activate the 911 system, we're treating 45% of those. So if that was applied to the 85% of patients who, in general, just don't activate the system, that could dramatically impact care in the community. So just one more reminder: face, arm, speech, time. Face, ask the person to smile. Does the face droop? Arm, ask them to raise their arms. Does one drift down? Speech, ask them to repeat a simple sentence. And time, every minute that ticks by, millions of brain cells are dying. call 911, get to the nearest Orange County Stroke Receiving Center. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Doctor. Let me make a presentation to you. Is Dan Kuperschmid in the audience? Dan, come on forward. Dan is the general manager of the Hyatt Regency in Newport Beach, and I have the great honor of reading the following proclamation. Whereas jazz is an original American art form that affirms the noblest aspirations of our national character, individual discipline, perseverance, and innovation, and whereas jazz has produced some of America's leading creative artists and ranks as one of America's greatest exports to the world, and whereas jazz has inspired dancers, choreographers, poets, novelists, filmmakers, classical composers, and musicians, and many other kinds of music, and whereas arts education and an appreciation of the contribution of all American art forms is a fundamental to the American people and the people of the city of Newport Beach, and whereas America's jazz heritage deserves to be appreciated as broadly as possible and should be part of an education both in America's children and adults, and whereas jazz is spoken eloquently of freedom of people in the United States and abroad and has become an international language that bridges differences and brings people of all races, ages, and backgrounds together, and whereas we honor and recognize the outstanding work of all the jazz artists, educators, and enthusiasts in the city of Newport Beach, and now I, therefore, Keith Curry, am pleased to proclaim April 30th as Jazz Day and the month of April as Jazz Appreciation Month in the city of Newport Beach. And we have invited Dan to come with us because, as many of you know, the Hyatt is one of the great venues for jazz. And why don't you talk a little bit about our festival this year?
We do a couple of different festivals throughout the year. At the end of May this year, we'll have about 5,000 people from primarily around the world, but mostly California residents that come and visit for a 3-day festival that takes place. We've got some really great names this year: Al Jarreau, a little bit newer R&B music with Babyface coming for the big festival. And then throughout the year, every Friday through the summer, for 16 Fridays this year, we have our concert series, and that is steeped in jazz, but we've moved to some crossover. But I think that you've done this is really commendable at the city level. Our jazz artists that come and visit, many of them are award-winning jazz artists. This means a lot to them, I think, and I look forward to promoting it to them as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, Greg Schwenk is a busy man this week, and he had planned to be here. If he were here, he would tell you that we're going to kick off the Newport Beach Film Festival this week on Thursday. It's an opportunity to see some great movies, and I encourage all of you to take advantage of that. It's one of the truly great arts experiences in Newport Beach, so come on down for that. Okay, notice to the public.
The city provides a yellow sign-in card to assist in the preparation of the minutes. The completion of the card is not required in order to address the city council. If the optional sign-in card has been completed, it should be placed in the box provided at the podium. The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones off or set them in the silent mode. Now is the time for City Council announcements or matters which council members would like placed on a future agenda for discussion, action, or report.
Councilmember Daigle.
Thank you. I was terribly disappointed to read about the judge's decision to sentence Jason Lopez to only 4 years in prison and 1 year in county jail for killing Dr. Kit Campion Ruiz, who was riding her bicycle on Newport Coast Drive. Our community was robbed of a significant citizen of considerable gifts. It was a tragedy. The killer hit her. He knew he hit her. He fled the scene. He left her to die in the street. Since it was a hit and run, we will never know that if he was intoxicated, which may have resulted in a different sentence. I do want to recognize the outstanding detective work of the police department who tracked this coward down. The sentence is very disappointing, and that given because of the jail overcrowding stuff, he may not even serve his full time. Secondly, I visited the California Delta on a visit hosted by the Metropolitan Water District. About 32% of Newport's water supply is imported from either the Colorado River or the Delta. It's the largest aqueduct system in the world, and you may be reading in the newspaper about the Delta. So if you're at a barbecue or something like that, let me tell you what are the important facts. What the state is going to be looking at doing and what they're going to be promoting are beefy twin barrel tunnels. There's 4 options: alternate A, alternate B, the peripheral canal, or twin tunnels. So it's the twin tunnels, 35 miles in length, to go under the Delta. And during the tour, it was brought to our attention the 3 big threats to the Delta. They're known as the triple S threats: sea level rise, subsidence, and seismic. The Delta system, as it is today, is functioning. There's no effort to abandon that system. These proposals that the state will bring forward are to supplement the existing system. So with sea level rise, the concern is that more salinity gets introduced into the Delta, which impacts your ecosystems and your wildlife. It affects your water supply and also agriculture, which is a major activity in the Delta. As far as subsidence goes, the levees are made of earthen material, and not far from the Delta is the mother lode of California. It's a 1 to 3 mile, 120 mile long alignment. And during the 1800s and into the 1900s, every mining technique known to man was being used up there. And as a result, there was a lot of material left from rocks and clays and earthen materials, and that all went to construct these earthen levees. But on the other side of the levees is considerable farming of peat soils, which when they're activated and turned, they thin out. And so the distances between as the soil sinks, you can kind of see the issues that are going on. And the most famous failure was the Jones Tract in 2004. So I'll conclude by saying a couple of things. First, the Delta does need to function for competing uses: water supply, farmland, recreation areas, and ecosystem. There's going to be a big push to build these tunnels. And thirdly, when I was kind of thinking about all those gold-bearing river systems, here in California, one of the reasons that activities like fracking are going to be super controversial and result in a raging debate is because our water supply intersects with our energy supply. So there's going to be a lot of public comments and activities about this as it goes forward. So it's an excellent tour, and I want to thank the Metropolitan Water District for inviting me.
Thank you. Mr. Hitt.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a few things. First, I'd like to add my congratulations to our police department. For the 9th year in a row, the Newport Beach Police Department's running team placed first in its category in the Baker to Las Vegas 120-mile Challenge Cup Relay. It was held on April the 13th and 14th. The police department placed first in its division and also in 10th place overall, the first time any 150 officer division has placed in the top 10. So they did an absolutely fabulous job. And even better than the prior year, and I can only attribute that the improved performance must have been that the chief didn't participate as one of the relay runners this year. You can let him know that. And so anyway, congratulations to our police department, another really fabulous performance. And then I also had the great pleasure to participate along with Councilmember Daigle and Mayor Curry and, Councilmember Selich and Councilmember Gardner. Were you there, Tony? The bay dredging. In any event, it was a celebration of the completion of our Lower Bay dredging project. That celebration took place on Wednesday, April the 14th. It was really a monumental accomplishment for the city, the first in many generations since our bay was originally created. And so congratulations to staff once again and to all involved. It was a fabulous achievement and very well celebrated by all in attendance. And then I did want to make sure to note that the Newport Ensenada, I attended the Newport Ensenada launch party, which was in Balboa Village this past Sunday from noon until 5 p.m. Mayor Curry was the keynote speaker there as well. And it was a great opportunity to really share a lot of fun, family-oriented fun in Balboa Village and help with the launching the excitement, if you will, of the Newport Ensenada race. Another great example of our efforts, I say the community volunteer efforts, especially in Balboa Village, to inject new excitement and energy into the village as we go along. And then that will be followed by, on this Thursday, the race kickoff party, which will be in the evening, beginning, I believe, at around 5 or 6 o'clock and running until 10 or 11 o'clock in Balboa Village. This is a free event, and there will be lots of things going on, entertainment, food, drink, whatever you might like, and it'll be another opportunity to really celebrate that race. The race itself begins around 11 a.m. on Friday, this coming Friday, and you can view it from a great spot at the end of the Balboa Pier. So I invite all to come out and enjoy the festivities. It's a very storied and exciting race.
Thank you, Mr. Selich.
Tomorrow at 3:30, there'll be a meeting of the General Plan, Local Coastal Plan Implementation Committee. It's going to be in the Corona Del Mar room. It's in Bay E. It's the furthest bay down towards the library on the first floor. This is the first time this committee's met in quite a while, and what we're going to do is kick off the start of the local coastal plan implementation process, and so that's going to be tomorrow at 3:30 in the afternoon in the Corona Del Mar room. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gardner.
Councilwoman Daigle's comments about the Delta and its vulnerability remind us that in Southern California, we should be focusing funds on our groundwater replenishment systems because they are our major source of water, and we can expand them, and we can make ourselves really self-sufficient with water. If we capture the rain and we capture our urban runoff, we wouldn't need to find new sources. We would just have it right there. So that's something we need to spend money on. This weekend, I was asked to come up to the neighbors, the neighborhood right across the street. We've heard from them the sale is causing them some concerns at night, but they asked me to look at it during the day. And it looks, from their point of view, it looks really bad during the day. It looks like the back of a billboard. All you see is the scaffolding. And I know staff is working on some solutions, but I would like to suggest if we do not come up with something, that the next time someone from the architect's firm comes down, have them take a look at it from that view, because I don't think they would like the view either. I think they would be a little bit embarrassed if that was somebody's first view of this wonderful site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petros.
No report today, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Hill.
No report.
I have a couple of things. First of all, congratulations to the Concordia University men's volleyball team. The very first year they have competed, and they are the national champions for NAIA this year. So kudos to my colleagues at Concordia. On the 10th of April, I was privileged to participate in the Daughters of the American Revolution scholarship ceremony at Newport Harbor High, and it's always inspiring to see the great young students that we have and see them recognized for their achievements and accomplishments. On July 11th, we held the installation for the Association of California Cities, Orange County. It was the very first formal event here in our community room, and I will tell you my colleagues from the other cities were duly impressed by our new facility here in Newport Beach, and for better or worse, I'm the new president of that organization. On the 17th, I was privileged to join with...
Congratulations.
Thank you. With Councilmember Gardner and I think Mr. Selich and maybe I think Councilmember Daigle and some other colleagues for the annual Corona Del Mar Residents Association open house. It was great to see so many residents along with the departments of our city represented at that meeting. People ask what is the most fun part of your job, and I have to tell you it's the same. On the 18th of April, I was privileged to present Mona Schwar, a 50-year resident of Dover Shores, a certificate in commemoration of her 106th birthday. Happy birthday, Mona. On the 16th of April, the Orange County Board of Supervisors became the final agency to approve the Memorandum of Understanding with the city, with SPON, Stop Bleeding on Newport, acting in conjunction with Airfare, and with the Airport Working Group to move forward on our landmark extension of the airport settlement agreement. This is one of the most significant and historic things that we can do, and I want to particularly recognize Supervisor John Morlock for his leadership and representation of our community on this issue. As I noted earlier, we kick off the film festival this year. By all means, get out there and check it out. You'll really enjoy it, and you'll really enjoy the kind of vibrancy and feel that it gives the city. And as been mentioned, we're also kicking off the Newport to Ensenada race. The best ticket in town is going to be at noon, looking off on Friday as the boats depart for Mexico. Schedule the time and find a place to see it. It's breathtaking, and you will not want to miss it. We're in the middle of the Mayor's Water Saving Challenge. All of the mayors across America are participating in this. We're certainly participating in it. So take some time and be thoughtful, as Mayor Gardner or as former Mayor Gardner indicated, to reduce water usage and help us to meet our targets there. And then finally, on May 4th, if you're watching at home and if you've not been down here to the new Civic Center, we're going to have a community open house. We'll have the Marine Band. All of the facilities will be open. The park will be open. Come down, see the expansion of the library, and see what's here. It's all for you. I think you're really going to enjoy it. That's 10 a.m. is the dedication ceremony, and then an open house from 10:30 to 1 o'clock on Saturday, May the 4th. So with that, let's move to the consent calendar.
Public comments are invited on consent calendar items 1 through 9 and supplemental item S15. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. To the extent that any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. The City Council has received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Thank you. Do you have any items to remove from the consent calendar? Councilmember Gardner.
Number 15.
Yes, 15. Mr. Petros.
No.
Mr. Hill.
None.
Councilmember Daigle.
Yes, I'd like to pull 4 and then note on number 8, someone in my district that stepped up to be on the Citizens Aviation Committee. His name is Jock Marlowe. Sounds like a fighter pilot, but actually he's the president of the HOA in East Bluff. And we still have openings for the Newport Coast representative and District 1 if anyone's interested. Thank you.
Sorry, did you pull that or you just mentioned talking about it?
I just wanted to mention Jock.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Hinn.
I have nothing.
Mr. Selich.
I don't have anything to pull, but just to comment on number 9, the ad hoc committee for commission vacancies. I notice we've got 4 vacancies on the Building Appeals Board, so I think we need to make some extra efforts to get applicants for that because it's kind of a specialized area. So if we could do that, I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you very much. And I have no items to pull. So let me ask, is there any public comment on matters on the consent calendar that were not pulled? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would move the approval of the items on the consent calendar with the exception of item number 4 and item number S15.
Second.
Motion and second. Please vote.
Councilmember Daigle?
Oh, I pressed the wrong.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you. We'll go to item number 4 first. Councilmember Daigle.
Yes, what is the M2 program?
The M2 program?
Yeah.
M2 is the second wave of Measure M that was recently passed. We had the first initial Measure M bond, which was the half-cent sales tax. M2 was when it was passed again for the second time. In that, there are various components. There's transportation money that goes to freeways, local cities. We get turnback or fair share of the money they have it. They also have money in there for environmental cleanup and freeways.
Okay.
And this is out of the environmental cleanup, which I believe is 2% of the total portion of it.
Okay. In being involved in this project in the Back Bay, I've kind of got a window into some of the activities, and it seems like there's a lot of things going on, CTS, trash, this and that. Is there any work program as far as just what our activities are within the Back Bay and what we're trying to do there?
There is a program. John Kapler, Bob Stein, and us talk about this, and I know they work also with the Water Quality Coastal Tidelands Committee at times to identify hot areas. And we've been looking lately at trash. We've been doing a lot of what they call combined separation structure, CDS units, and we've been looking at the hot spots for trash, and we have several more of those going in. We're also looking at, in this round of grant applications, maybe addressing bacteria over by the arches, and also some sediment areas. So there are some hot spots they're using, and that's kind of the program.
Okay. And then it seems like, I've heard a lot about selenium and all these different things, that there's different policy positions taken with the regional board and with the county, and it's just very unclear. So I would appreciate at some point if there could be some sort of a policy matrix work program to the whole council as far as what the plan is back there.
We could look into that for you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll move the item. I don't have
Motion. Is there a second? Second. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor Curry?
Mr. Petros.
I would just acknowledge that this whole realm of M2 with the mitigation, the environmental mitigation, is something new, and I believe it is very opportunistic that our staff is taking this effort to try and get funds for our efforts to improve our water quality. This is a big deal, and we should really make notice of that.
Well taken. Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this matter? All right, seeing none, the motion has been made and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Next item is supplemental S15. Councilmember Gardner.
This is on the concession agreement with 24 carats. A couple of questions. 3 of the 4 proposers emphasized the importance of the catering opposition. The 4th was a different kind of entity, or why didn't they care?
To my recollection, one of the 4, it wasn't a fully fleshed out proposal, so I don't know that they even thought to address it.
Okay. And then 24 carats, whoever does it, we are going to give them exclusivity in terms of catering. Do they have a lot of catering background? What kind of range of, if they do, what kind of range of foods and things do they offer so that we have some variety for people if they come?
They're a pretty active caterer in their other restaurants, and in fact, I ran into somebody who had their wedding catered by them, just said it was wonderful. So I wasn't on the interview panel, but the interview panel asked all those questions. Do you have the capability? What's the quality? What's the menus? They looked at all those things.
So they can do more than, say, a vegetable platter or something?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'll move the item.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Let me ask a question also. Does the exclusivity, does that apply to the Friends Room and council and stuff like that?
No, it's just the events that would be organized in the community room, or potentially if someone was using the Civic Green, but not in the library, not for...
Great. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Daigle.
I had a question. I was reading in there about the Irvine Company having slurs on this property, specialized in land use restrictions. Those are still in effect on this property?
I think we were reserving the right to take an additional look to make sure that this is compliant with the slurs. We believe it is. We've had that informal communication with them. But
okay.
we
wouldn't want them vetoing the menu or something?
Well, unless they had the legal right to do it, but
okay.
Certainly not.
All right,
yeah.
thank you.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back. There's been a motion and second. Please vote.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you. We're now ready for public comments on non-agenda items.
Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
Mayor Curry and council members, my name is Joan Templeton Morris. We are all grateful for living in this wonderful country where our forefathers had the insight to design a government where citizens have an opportunity to express concerns to their elected representatives. We are here to exercise that right and ask our representatives to correct a decision by the City Parks and Recreation Management. In late March, a physical fitness class which had been utilizing Newport Coast Recreation Center from 8 to 8:50 a.m. 5 days a week for 7 years was canceled by the Newport Beach Parks and Recreation Management. No one contacted any member of the class or explained any reason for the cancellation. Our class was told by the instructor that Newport Beach had canceled the class contracted with Irvine Valley College as of June this year. Naturally, I wrote my council representative about the class cancellation and contacted the management of Parks and Recreation. Their response was that the decision had been made for various reasons and it was final. Major reasons given were that the rec department wanted to serve a larger age group and that all students who wanted a physical fitness class should go to Oasis. There are approximately 35 class members that span 50 years from 40 to 90. I think that's a pretty large age group. Seniors tend to be financially conservative so that they can survive to the end. Perhaps your Recreation and Senior Services Director does not understand how seniors must plan carefully so their funds do not run out, as she has a total yearly income of $222,499 a year. I have surveyed the surrounding communities for the cost of senior physical fitness classes, and they are: Coastline Community College is free, Irvine residents with a gold card is free, Laguna Beach is 66 cents per class, Costa Mesa is free, the canceled IBC class was $1.25 per session. Oasis fitness classes run from $3.42 to $17 per session. Next to the Newport Coast Recreation Center are hundreds of apartments and small condos and townhomes full of middle-class people. Not all of Newport Coast has a Kobe Bryant millionaire. If my husband and I enrolled in the Oasis class, it would have cost us $410 to $2,040 for one 12-week session. The council class for both of us was $120, 5 days a week for 12 weeks. We are not questioning or requesting any change for any class offered at Oasis, even though it's much more expensive than the other programs. But to stay healthy, we need a reasonably priced physical fitness program offered close to our homes for 5 days a week. Your Director of Recreation and Senior Services has done an excellent job of offering creative classes at Oasis. You are to be congratulated on creating a wonderful center there, and most of us enjoy its programs. But for many of us, it's extremely expensive, and one class per week will not keep us fit and keep us from getting a stroke. I am 81 years old, and I exercise every day. I struggle and ache, but keep going because I know to stop would create many health problems: loss of movements, strokes, heart problems, assisted living, nursing home, and a great cost to me and a great cost to your Newport community. I can bend over, clean my house, walk the dog, and volunteer. In fact, we're going to be on the start boats to do the starting of the Newport race at the Ensenada, and believe me, those captains will slit your throat if you don't do it right. And we're both going to be there all day. And that's volunteering for Newport Beach. I want to thank you for this class that you gave me, and thank you for the opportunity to keep myself healthy at 81. Understand we are only asking the class continue at Newport Coast Recreation Center with Irvine Valley College. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. And, Joan, I know Joan's sort of the leader of this group, and so I let her go a little long. How many people are here from that class tonight? I think there's probably quite a few.
Aren't they a healthy bunch of looking seniors?
Yes, they are. Not all of them actually are really seniors, I think, when I look at them, too, but very good. So let me, before we have a lot, maybe Mr. Kiff, would you like to respond to the situation here? I know Ms. Detweiler, I don't believe, is in the audience.
Sure. Being someone who fitness is important to me, too, I very much respect your membership in the class and your interest in the class. And just to provide a little bit of context, we set up the class initially because Oasis was going to be shut down, and the thought was to invite IVC in Irvine Valley College in and to provide that class with the thought that when Oasis was reopened, that would move back to Oasis so that we could reprogram other uses at Newport Coast. I think if we were, all of us could go back to the drawing board, we would build more rooms at Newport Coast, given how much use that is getting. And that's a terrific problem to have, but it's still a problem. I would be happy to sit down with a couple of folks and with Laura and see what potentially we could resolve here, because again, I respect everyone's interest in staying fit and see what the options are. So I'll do that. But know that it wasn't done willy-nilly. It was.
Well, I think that's a very good offer, David. I appreciate that, because I think it probably was not done maliciously, but it was done without fully appreciating what the value of that course to the people who participate in it. And rather than have a lot of people who want to come, and sure, and everybody can if you want to, say the same thing, I want you to know we sort of get it, and Dave has been assigned to sort of sit down with people and see what we can do to help that situation, because you are here. So if there's others who would like to come forward for public comment, but be apprised that we're going to make that step. Thank you, Joan.
My name is Robin White Beautifish. I live at 30 Shandong, Newport Coast, a few blocks from the community center. And as a businesswoman, I've especially appreciated being able to get in, get out, and start my business day on my phone at 8 a.m. One of the things that I think is wrong about this decision to move us is that it seems like there's a repurposing of the Newport Coast Community Center into a money-making event. There's plenty of hotel rooms that can hold business meetings, and now that we have this gorgeous new facility with more community rooms, they could handle that. By the way, I totally love this building. Build it once, build it right, bravo. However, the Newport Coast Community Center is a different kind of a building than this, and most of you here will remember that the Newport Coast Community Center was a pivotal part of the annexation process between Newport Coast and Newport Beach. And it was part of the negotiations with the committee of 2000 and with most of you, because if you read the Newport Coast advisory minutes from that time, just about everybody sitting here, including the city manager, were privy to those negotiations. There was a lot of opposition to building the community center. Mainly, people did not want somebody to build a community center in their backyard on what we considered our land. But we negotiated it, and it was built, but assurances were given to the people that it would be something that would give them priority. If you read those minutes, they discuss a reservation priority system for the local people, saying you would come first. And there's a direct quote in the minutes, probably Jim McGee, I'm sure you haven't forgotten him, that said this center should not become a profit center at the expense of the community. So I think it's bad public policy to say that all the seniors should go to Oasis, all the young people should be at the Newport Coast Community Center, and to separate us by birth date. I think that's bad public policy, and I do hope that you will allow us to negotiate with the recreation director or you, because I think it's very simple to fix this. Very simple.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other speakers on public comment? Please come forward. Yes, sir.
My name is Sam Fung. I live on 29 Wysant, a neighbor of yours, I guess.
Yeah.
And I wrote an email concerning this matter to all the councilmen, and Mayor Curry was very nice to give me a quick response about it. And I just like to bring up a few points. And I read at the summer program of the community centers, and one thing was saying that they need the space for the summer program. And I looked at the whole program. There's only one program that's at 8 o'clock, 8:30 for the whole summer. And that turned out to be a Lego animation flex. And it only lasts 1 week. So we could have suspended our class and everything would be happy. I mean, we need to be evicted for the whole summer. And the second thing I want to point out is that I look at the enrollment picture. That's also from the website of the Newport Beach Navigator. And of the 99 sessions, there's only 8 sessions has enrollment more than 17 students. And out of that, only 2 use our room. One is the, what they call Kitty 101. The other is our class. So it seems illogical to throw out the class that's the most participant. And in fact, well, I don't know, you cannot see this, but I did graph the enrollment picture, and you can see that these are the enrollments less than 17 in our classes here. And there's only one class bigger than us that's a jazzercise exercise at 8 o'clock, and they use the gym. And the other point I'd like to make is that about the Oasis. Actually, I have been at the Oasis class for many years until 2007. And that class is very good and very popular, except it's always packed. And we hardly had any standing rooms next to, we have practically sort of have to stand next to each other. And there's hardly room to move. So when 2007, you started this program, then I gladly moved over because, you know, we started actually with about less than 10 students. And so to propose to merge the 2 classes, well, I'm a teacher, I'm a retired professor of physics. Everyone knows that classroom size means very important, right? The large classroom size means less effectiveness for teaching. So it's unfair to merge the 2 classes into Oasis, because that just means that we have less personal attention and also less space to work with. So I thank the council for giving me the chance to talk.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thank you for coming down. Next speaker, please.
My name is Carrie Reach, and I'm a 19-year resident in Newport Coast. And for the last 6 years, my husband and I have walked from our home to the Newport Coast Community Center and been enrolled in the senior fitness class through Irvine Valley College. And we love it. We hate to lose it. So when we found out that it was going to be canceled, I called Lori Dittweiler and discussed it with her. And she said they needed our classroom for children's programs. I am first and foremost an advocate for children. I taught for 40 years in the early childhood education program at Long Beach City College. As department chair, I signed contracts with churches, schools, parks, and we sent teachers, equipments, and supplies for parents of their infants, toddlers, and preschools, and not one of them started before 9 o'clock in the morning. Our program is from 8 to 10 minutes to 9. We would be willing to meet at 10 minutes to 8 to 20 minutes to 9 and stay and set up for the children's programs if in fact that's what they decide to put in there. It just seems unfair. I voted for the annexation and one of the perks was a community center to serve our community, and I would like to still have it serve our community, all of us, seniors as well as children. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming down. Any other public comment, please?
Mayor Curry and City Council, my name is Bob Morris. My wife and I pay enough property taxes every year to buy a new car, but we can't. because we pay our taxes. One service I use from Newport Beach is the exercise class at Newport Coast. It was canceled. Why? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
My name is Melvie Vanderslice, and I live in Newport Beach. Some of the comments were made, but one thing is, isn't it kind of ironic that you're in this gorgeous place, which I just love, and we get kicked out of our rec center? Some points were covered, so I was going to rebut something Ms. Didweidler said. She wanted to, by moving IVC classes, she said, we were able to add 9 weeks of summer camps and facilitate meetings which we could not before. The summer classes are scheduled, and we see that you do not have any before 9:15. The setup employee said the rooms are ready by 9:10. Our class is from 8 to 8:50. There is no conflict. She mentioned an 8:30 class, but that's skateboarding, and that's outside. And it's been going concurrently all the time. We've been there for 7 years taking these classes, so this is a big loss. And isn't it kind of embarrassed to send us to Laguna Beach, impact and crowd another center when we have our own beautiful rec center? It will cost us more in gas, wear and tear on cars, stress, pollution, and traffic congestion. Many students walk to class at Newport Coast just from their neighborhood. The class at Oasis she wants us to attend has 45 enrolled presently. Adding 30 more would make it 75. And very crowded. It is on a slab floor, which is harmful to knees, and the IVC class has a wooden floor. I have taken this class for about 4 years, and since then my bone density has increased significantly. This class is very aerobic, so we move around, and there is none that compares at Oasis like this. So our class is so fit that our instructor takes some of us members every semester to Cal State Fullerton's kinesiology class just to show them that you can age and be fit, especially if you exercise every day. So our class is 5 days a week, very aerobic. We use weights and do stretching. Please save our class. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other speakers? We're getting the message on this issue, so...
My arm's twisted, I could say uncle, too.
Okay, there you go. The key thing in government, you know, is to stop when you're ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Curry, thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Elaine. I'm a resident of the Newport Beach. I'm come here, as you can see, I'm in this class as well. I'm age of 53. So I'm represent the young group. I'm not a senior citizen yet, but I come here to this class because actually I was a board director of the Asian American Senior Citizen. I come this class to first for the observation, so I actually signed up for 1 day a week, and I fall in love with this group and the teacher and all the people that I see. So I signed up 5 days a week for a year already, and I see deeply to see that my classmates, make the statement, and then I deeply to analyze this for it. I feel like it, what they need is what they want. What they want is what they need. So please help up to say to this class and really enjoy it for this class. And then actually, I also would like to know that if any help, so I'm actually volunteering by myself to serve for the senior, and to do in this class, I really feel that this is a present time.
Thank you, ma'am.
I wonder if I might interject.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I would like to talk on a different subject, if this is the appropriate time to do it.
This is the appropriate time. Go right ahead.
First of all, Mayor and City Council members, thank you for your service to our city. We really appreciate what you folks do. I am Patricia Schuler. I live next door to Hoag Hospital, and that's the subject I'd like to touch on this evening. I live in the Versailles condos. We're on the west boundary of Hoag, near Hospital Road, across from the Central Plant.
Ma'am, we are going to talk about their annual development agreement review.
Yes?
That is on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
So
Should I
that's
wait
when you
till
should
then?
talk about that then, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Okay,
Thank
it's
you.
coming right up.
Good, thank you.
Don't go away. Yes, ma'am. Come on down.
I have one thing to add. I just want to say that
You must be in the exercise class, too. You came down here real quick.
fast. Just get it in, right? I just want you to know that we as a group are the seniors in this community. And we volunteer thousands of hours of our time to the city. We work in the literacy program at the library, at the Friends Bookstore, as Back Bay guides, as math and science tutors, as museum docents, at Hoag Hospital, and at Oasis too. We run the local election polls for Orange County, and it is we who are being evicted from a program that energizes us and enables us to perform all this volunteer work at the age of 70 plus. I think Newport Beach should be encouraging and praising their seniors for being active and not trying to chase us away by evicting us from the Newport Coast Community Center.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other public comment on matters not on the agenda?
I'm in the exercise class, too. My name's James Reach. I'm a retired exercise science instructor from the Rancho Santiago Community College District. I'm also a proud resident of Newport Coast. I've been a participant in the program for 6 years. I understand the need for physical exercise and its role in the overall health of our minds and our body. There is no drug current that takes the place of daily physical exercise. I know our program is being moved to Laguna Beach, and I know it would probably be a good one. I'm sure it would be. There are similar programs in Anaheim, in Costa Mesa, in Irvine, in Orange, and probably throughout Orange County. But I don't reside in any of these communities, and neither do the citizens that are here today. I feel blessed to be here, to shop here, to drive here, to walk here, to exercise in our community center, in our area where we live. I hope you'll reconsider reinstating our program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment on non-agenda items? I want to thank the members of the class for coming down and making your voices heard, and I think they were effective, and I think you did a very good job, and I appreciate the fact that you've been here, and thank you for all the emails that we've received over the past several weeks, too. They were all very thoughtful and well articulated. And you do have the commitment of Mr. Kiff to sit down and see what we can do to address the situation, so thank you all for coming down. Let me, some other time perhaps. Let us proceed now to oral reports from City Council members on committee activities. Councilmember Daigle.
Yes, the Vector Control met. It was their 797th meeting. They were previously the Orange County Mosquito Abatement District, so that goes back to 1947. And we happen to be talking about mosquitoes, and probably the best advice Vector can give is put some screens on your windows. And then secondly is, on the Aviation Committee, one of the things that the community is taking up is to try to improve these departure procedures. And I just want to set expectations to say it's not going to be a cakewalk. I mean, if it was a cakewalk, we wouldn't have hired General Electric, Navarus. So we are going to try, but do the best we can.
Thank you. Mr. Hinn.
Yes, two committee reports. The Finance Committee met yesterday here in our new Civic Center. We had another very substantive agenda. We considered the policy for reserves for the city. We reviewed that, agreed with staff as to some changes in that reserve policy, and concluded to recommend it to council for full consideration as soon as the staff can get it on the agenda. Then we also reviewed the city's debt management policy. This is a very important document in relation to how the rating agencies look at us. We considered some changes in that document as well and recommended it to the council as a whole for approval. We also looked at the financial planning tool that we use as we consider changes to our critical facilities and parks that we would like to develop, et cetera. This is a tool that's very important to help us understand, as we're going along here, whether we're making prudent financial decisions. And this is the same tool that we used when we concluded that it would be financially prudent to borrow the money for this civic center. This same tool now yields a view of the world that it appears that nearly all of our remaining, what will be something in the range of $150 million of critical facilities replacement over the next 20 years, is likely to be funded with cash. And so, as we look at the totality of our fiscal management here across that whole program over a period of 20 or 25 years, I think our citizens can be thankful and confident that certainly the majority of that will be cash funded as opposed to borrowed money. And I'm very confident that we'll continue to have a very strong AAA credit rating as we go forward, assuming events unfold as they are scheduled in that tool. In any event, that tool has been updated and will be reviewed by council and available to the public as a whole as we go through our budget approval process here in the next month or so. We also considered an early draft of the financial section that goes into the quarterly business report for the city, and I'm pleased to say that it appears, based upon our best estimate today, that we will have yet another budget surplus as we finish this fiscal year on June the 30th. Lastly, we reconsidered the work plan for the Finance Committee and made some changes and finalized that. We also had a meeting of the Balboa Village Advisory Committee. This is the committee established to oversee the master plan that Council has approved in concept, at least, for the revitalization of Balboa Village. We finalized a view of the maintenance schedule for recommendation and approval by Council in accordance with the budget process. We also discussed a very real possibility that we'll be having what is called a ULI TAP. That's Urban Land Institute Technical Advisory Program. And that's an excellent opportunity for us in Balboa Village to expand the horizons of our thinking about what the village can be as we get more creative and try to really execute the finality of this master plan that we've been working on. We also reviewed some parking work that's ongoing in the village in support of the master plan and some work as it relates to the facade subcommittee. So it was a very good meeting, and I appreciate Council Member Petros' involvement on our committee and the good hard work done by staff along the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hinn. Mr. Selich.
No reports.
Councilmember Gardner.
Nothing?
No report.
Mr. Hill.
No reports.
And I have no reports. We'll move on to public hearings. Item number 10, the code amendment for mixed-use zoning districts on the Balboa Peninsula.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Curry, members of the council. Planning Manager Patrick Alford is going to provide an overview of the proposed changes to 3 of the mixed-use zoning districts on Balboa Peninsula.
Mayor Curry and members of the council, as indicated, this is a...
Turn the mic on.
There?
There's a button at the base of it.
Okay. How's that? Is that good? Okay.
You got to talk to us.
Very close. This is a fairly straightforward, but we feel needed amendment to the zoning code. It would modify the mixed-use development standards for 3 mixed-use zoning districts, all of which are located on the Balboa Peninsula, as indicated earlier. It would basically allow you to waive or modify the minimum density requirement for mixed-use projects through the site development review process. And I should point out that site development review is required for all mixed-use projects, so this is not another layer or another type of application to apply to. The map on the screen shows the areas that would be affected, basically going from Lido Marina Village down to Balboa Village. We felt that this area has some unique constraints. looking at the first projects that are being proposed for the peninsula that are under the new zoning code, they're having some difficulty in meeting this minimum density standard. So we took a look back and looked at some previously approved projects, ones approved prior to the zoning code, and found out that those projects could not be approved today because they also could not meet the minimum density standard. So that is the basic amendment. I have some examples of some of the projects that we've looked at, if you'd like to review those. Otherwise, I'm here to answer any of your questions.
Any questions for Mr. Alford?
Mayor Curry?
Mr. Petros?
I had the opportunity, too, to go back over the Planning Commission's deliberations and their thoughts here, and they unanimously approved this amendment. My only concern is that if we accept this, it does not permit a potential or a developer to completely waive the residential component if, in fact, there is the ability to provide some residential in their plan, correct?
Yes.
For example, in your case studies, there were a number where it was less than the required, but there was still an accommodation for residential.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gardner? Any other comments? We open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on this matter? Please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor Curry and members of the council. I think it was about 2 months ago that you announced an initiative to clean up the municipal code. This is not very old code. This is the zoning code that was adopted in 2010. But I think frequently when we're making revisions, we're missing opportunities to make the code clearer to the public than it is now. This particular proposal is being implemented by adding footnotes to tables that you have in your agenda packet here. There's a table 210 and a table 211. Most of the table is pretty straightforward. It says lot area, you look that up, certain number of square feet, setbacks, a certain number of feet. This particular section that we're adding the footnote to, the Planning Division understands how it works, but the public trying to read this, it's a very confusing section. It says something about minimum lot areas, maximum lot areas. They're not really lot areas at all. They're numbers you divide into the lot area. And oddly, it has your minimum and a maximum. You use those numbers to determine a range of housing units that you have to have in this mixed-use development. And you actually use the number called minimum to figure out the maximum number of houses, and the number called maximum to figure out the minimum. It takes the public a great deal of homework to figure out what this table is trying to tell us. And I think we could have cleaned it up while we were doing this amendment. And I think it's unfortunate we don't take those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the council. Is there a motion?
Move the recommended action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second to move the recommended action. Please vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for ordinance number 2013-9, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach. Councilmember Daigle. Thank you. Approving Code Amendment Number CA 2013-001, modifying the minimum lot area density standard for MUV, mixed-use vertical, MUCV 15th Street, mixed-use Cannery Village in 15th Street, and MUW2 mixed-use water zoning district. With that, the motion carries unanimously 7-0.
Thank you. Next item is item 11, the 2013-14 action plan for the Community Development Block Grant.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, block grant. Okay. Excuse me, I'm a little confused there. This item here is the action plan for the Community Development Block Grant budgeting cycle. This is an item that is for our block grant. It's a yearly item. It does provide the funding for several public service agencies, capital improvements, program administration. This program is administered by HUD. It's a long-standing program that we have here in the community, and this is a public hearing this evening. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's a fairly routine item, but if you have any questions about any of the programs that we're funding here and their levels, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Yes, I do.
Councilmember Gardner.
I hope I'm reading this wrong, but the capital improvements, which are 65% of the grant, those are done. We did those a long time ago. We're just paying for them, right?
Yes.
So that's somebody writing a check or doing something. I mean, is it really involved, that part of it? It says repayment.
Involved in terms of staff time?
Yes.
No.
Because what I'm looking at is we're recommending $52,000 approximately in grants, and we're claiming $70,000 in administration costs. Now, if you're a nonprofit, you couldn't get away with that. Or, well, you could. I mean, but eventually you'd get caught. Why are our administrative costs so high? Because we're not doing a straight percentage from what I can see, because, as I say, from what I'm looking at, the $239,000 doesn't take any of our time at all. What is our expenses? Wouldn't we be better off and doing what we're supposed to do by giving more of the money away and charging less for the time we spend administering the program?
Councilmember Gardner, I might want to point out that we do have a statutory cap on the public services. There's a statutory cap of 20% on program administration, and part of that pays the Fair Housing Council. So,
pays for what?
For fair housing services for the community. It's a mandatory element of the block grant program, and that's $12,000. So, we're running about $58,000 for administration. We spend approximately $50 to $52 on a consultant who does all of the paperwork for HUD, administers the program, the drawdowns, and works with our finance department.
So is what you're telling me that many of our administrative expenses are completely out of our hands and we cannot make them smaller?
We really can't make them any smaller. We do hire a consultant that manages all the forms and paperwork for HUD, and that program runs
Are we
about
required to
$50,000.
have a consultant from HUD,
No,
for HUD?
We are not required to have a consultant. We could theoretically do this with in-house staffing services. At the moment, we don't have staff available to accommodate that, and hence why we use a consultant to process this.
Well, I think it's sad that there's such high administration costs, whether it's our fault or somebody else's, that we have out of all this money, we give $52,000 in grants, and the rest goes to consultants and things. But it is what it is.
Councilmember Gardner, I might also point out that we are going to go out and competitively bid this and see if we can get this a little bit lower this year for the next upcoming 2 cycles. So we're hopeful to get it a little bit lower.
Yeah, how many hours does the consultant sort of bill, or they just get a lump sum?
I don't have a good handle on how many hours they bill, but it roughly equates to about $50,000 to $52,000, slightly more or less, depending upon the nature of the programs during the year. And a lot of it is really administering the public service grants and the reviewing the invoices and the agreements and working with them to make sure that we're getting the proper reports that HUD requires on income eligibility and ethnicity and this and that. So there's a lot of hours there, but I don't have a good handle on the number.
Yeah. I think in the past, the city also took the approach where the consultant fees were less, but we still took the full 20%. We just, a greater portion of that was for staff overhead. So we are able to pay ourselves for doing that.
There's a small amount here. We estimate we spend around $17,000 on just on staff time amongst the variety, and that's a rough estimate. So we're probably subsidizing a little bit with the general fund. It's a minor amount of staff time, but there is a modest amount that we can use for our own costs.
At least as I read this, that the public service has a statutory cap on it so that we may not spend more than 15%. So even, I'm not justifying our cost of administration. It does seem $1 for $1 a bit high. But we would not, to the extent we would lower, as I looked at it anyway, is we would lower our administrative cost, we're still not increasing the amount that we can provide for public service.
That's correct.
I would just observe that this process brings all the efficiency for which HUD is well known for. But I would also say that some of these agencies that we fund, I've been out with the people who do the Meals on Wheels program and the people in need, and those are outstanding programs. We really appreciate what they do. If there's no further council comments, the public hearing is open. I'd invite anybody who'd like to speak on this matter to please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Barbara Shull. I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Foundation. Am I too loud? Okay, good. As you were discussing, the Fair Housing Program is under the admin portion of the budget. It is to affirmatively further fair housing, which is a requirement for a city to receive CDBG funds. The Fair Housing Foundation is in its second year of providing fair housing services for the city of Newport. I believe the city is extremely pleased with our services to date, and I just want to say thank you for your continued support, and I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you for coming down. Are there any other speakers? Please come forward.
Jean Wagner, I'm the Executive Director of Serving People in Need, and we are going to celebrate our 25th anniversary this year. We were founded in Newport Beach, and I want to thank you for your recommendation. We changed our program this year to our housing program because we're serving more seniors this year than ever before. Requests for help with housing, and your housing element itself showed that there's a 31% increase in seniors. We were asked this year by the churches. Monsignor Baird called us recently and asked us to help a family that had lost their home after 60 years on Balboa Island, to help that family get into housing somewhere in Orange County. So we've taken that family on and we're helping them. Every day we have another family from Newport Beach calling and asking us to help that they've run into trouble because of the economy. So that's one of the elements that we've asked for help with the city from, to help with seniors and housing. Also, other individuals and families in the city. I think you all know there's a homeless desk at Corona Del Mar High School for families that have lost their housing through jobs and due to the economy. Families that are now living in motels in Costa Mesa, but their children are still attending school in Corona Del Mar. 1 in 6 children are living in poverty in Orange County. We have the highest per capita of homeless in Orange County than any other county in California. That's a pretty sad situation. And by homeless, I'm not talking about the person that's standing on the side of the road saying, I'll work for food. I'm talking about men that walk up to our office during the day and we think that they're going to make a donation, and they walk in the door and fall on their knees and say, please help me. I've lost my job. My wife hasn't worked in 22 years. I can't feed my children. Please, please help me. It's really sad, and it's hard for us not to start crying ourselves. So I thank you for what you gave us tonight, and I hope you'll keep supporting us and helping us to help the residents and the friends and the neighbors and the people that are in church with us. We really need your help. It's pretty dismal out there. And I'm sure every one of you, if you think about it, knows someone who really needs help.
Thank you, and thank you for the good job that you all continue to do year after year. Other speakers, please.
Mayor Curry and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. At the last sentence on handwritten page 9 of the report that we've purchased here says that no public comments were received during this public hearing, and I assume it will cost less than $58,000 to correct that. And I think it might be helpful if the staff could explain if we could reduce the $58,000 that it cost to produce this report and the administration during the year. The report itself seems mostly, it's very similar to the report last year, mostly just a little, word processing, updating of stuff. It appears to me, if we could reduce that $58,000 and we can't put it in the first category, the 15% statutory cap, what could we spend the savings on under this program? I think that would be an interesting question to know the answer to.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Are there any other comments? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Jillian Miller. I'm the grants manager at Families Forward, and I just wanted to thank the council and the city of Newport Beach for supporting our program, which is the transitional housing program that we have. In our last fiscal year, we were able to serve 52 families who were homeless, all at the extremely low or very low income levels. getting them off the streets with their children into our transitional homes in Irvine and Lake Forest. And it's made a big impact on them, allowing them to return to self-sufficiency, which is our main goal, whether it's through career coaching, our housing programs, our on-site food pantry. That's the big overall arching goal of Families Forward, is to get families back to self-sufficiency. And you are all doing a huge part in that. So thank you.
Thank you,
If there's
Jillian.
any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you for the good job you guys do.
Thank you.
Any other speakers, please come forward. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to City Council. Is there a motion?
Move the recommended action.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. We're now on item 12, the Development Agreement Number 5, Annual Compliance Review regarding Hoag Hospital. Yours.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Curry.
Coming up.
This is another annual review of a development agreement that the city has with the Hoag Hospital organization, and staff has reviewed the compliance report that was submitted by the Hoag Hospital representatives, and have found them, and it is our belief that they are in good faith compliance with the terms of the agreement. Principal Planner Jim Campbell does have a presentation if you would like some more information on the subject.
Does anyone desire a presentation? I think you can hold that presentation for now. Are there any council questions before I open it up to the public? All right, let me open this matter up for public comment. Ma'am, you get to be first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Try this one more time. My name is Patricia Schuler, and I live next door to Hoag Hospital. I've lived over there for about 30 years, and in the Versailles condos. We're on the west boundary of Hoag, near the hospital road, and right across from the hospital road, and the central plant buildings, and the emergency room. That's the area where we are, and there are several of us here this evening. My neighbors and I are very concerned about the increased noise level that has resulted from the dramatic expansion of Hoag Hospital, particularly over the last 2 years or so. I'm referring primarily to the noisy machines that Hoag runs 24/7, which are part of the central plant area, and which is, again, directly across the west road from our homes. As we understand it, the machines provide ventilation, cooling, etc., primary services for the hospital. And as Hoag's needs increase, the machines increase in velocity and noise, similar to a jet engine, and they run day and night. And as the hospital has grown, more and more machines of various sizes have been added to that area. There is no buffer to protect us from that noise from where we live. When I first moved here many years ago, the noise level was a low hum from all that equipment. It's now a constant roar. Down on the lower campus, we watched as Hoag added additional machinery, most of which is in an enclosed structure. We met with Kerry Brooks last June to express our concerns and to ask for help in getting some relief from the noise. We followed up with him in October. He indicated at that time that acoustical measurements would be taken and reviewed. However, in reviewing the Hoag report that was submitted on March 19th of this year, the one from a few weeks ago, it's clear that no testing was done around our homes. It was primarily done around the Villa Balboa property, which is our next-door neighbor to the south. And as you may or may not know, Villa Balboa is protected by various forms of noise buffers, which Hoag has provided over the last few years. For example, in addition to the sound wall that Hoag built along the service road, they installed noise mitigation material in the loading dock area and around the trash compactor, and even the new kitchen ventilation fans that were installed over there on the roof. Our Villa Balboa neighbors are further protected from nighttime noise by the service road closure between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., which eliminates all traffic and loading dock activity. Unfortunately, for those of us who live in the Versailles condos, at night the traffic has no exit on the service road. Going south, they must go north towards Hospital Road, right past our homes. The emergency vehicles that exit from the emergency room back up with that bang, bang, bang noise. Who invented that for trucks? All trucks seem to make that noise, and these big diesel engines with the trucks, they then pull onto the service road and accelerate up past our homes. They can't exit to the south, again, because the road is closed at night. The situation we now find ourselves in is analogous in some ways to living next to a manufacturing plant that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and has a full-service loading dock that also runs 24/7. We would appreciate whatever help and guidance you could give us to help us recover some of the quiet enjoyment of
Thank
our
you.
homes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Other speakers, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Sue Silovs, and like Patricia Schuler, I'm a homeowner in the Versailles condos, specifically in the McNeil building, directly across the West Road, the service road on the western boundary of Hoag Hospital. My bedroom window looks directly at building number 9, also known as the central plant. Beginning in the summer of 2011, I made contact with Carrie Brooks, expressing my concern about the noise level coming from the central plant and also arising from the alarm bells placed on that and other Hoag buildings. The combined effects of this noise, dare I say noise pollution, was and is to frequently wake me from a sound sleep. It came to my attention in 2011 because I was recovering from surgery and found it difficult enough to sleep, and then when the alarm bells would come on at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was quite disturbed. Eventually meeting with several Versailles homeowners, Carrie Brooks reported that the bell alarms were provided by a contractor to meet state requirements and didn't seem to feel there was much solution available there. He further explained that one of the central plant functions was, in fact, to mitigate noise from the southern campus, transferring the bulk of ventilation to the northern campus central plant during the nighttime hours. Over more than 2 years, Hoag Hospital has worked diligently to mitigate noise as it affects our neighbors in Villa Balboa. The most recent noise study exclusively addresses the noise levels as they might be perceived by Villa Balboa. The closest any measure came to the Versailles complex occurred at the southern end of the tennis courts, erroneously identified as belonging to Versailles, when in fact they are Villa Balboa courts. In none of the aerial photographs is the McNeil building identified. The noise study never considers the impact of Hoag noise on our building. Further, the noise study took place in February and cannot adequately reflect the noise of the northern campus ventilation plant as it works in the heat of summer to ventilate so many Hoag buildings. Noise levels must remain constant as a matter of policy in the lower plant, and so rise dramatically at the plant directly across from our homes. It is my hope that this hardworking city council will recognize that Villa Balboa is not Hoag's only residential neighbor. I affirm the remarks and description of Patty Schuler and seek relief from the ever-escalating noise of Hoag Hospital. A baffle, a strobe light to replace an alarm bell, an official reply in writing from Hoag, a noise study that addresses the alarm bells and the Versailles community needs. We ask for something that acknowledges the reality of our predicament and offers some restoration of the quality of life we always hope to enjoy in Newport Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Other speakers, please come forward.
Mayor Curry and City Council member. My name is Arlene Durimus. I'm a 27-year resident at Villa Balboa, and I'm therefore in Newport Beach. So many of my neighbors as well have lived there almost 30 years. We have grown to accept the changes surrounding us as well as our next door neighbor, Hoag, and their continued growth and success. We certainly appreciate their presence. Unfortunately, with the noise that comes with changes, these are not always a welcome mat for us. As in all relationship, we've experienced a lot of bumps and a lot of hiccups. We are not crybabies. Please believe us. We've had a very high level of tolerance for many years now. Frustration comes from email not being acknowledged that are sent to to Hoag, and quite a lack of communication most of the time. I appreciate what the Versailles residents have gone through, because, trust me, Villa Balboa, where we are, I have 21 condominiums that I receive complaint on. We do not have walls all the way to block the dietary loading dock. We do not have
Ma'am, if you can speak into the
windows.
microphone, please.
Pardon me. We do not have windows like 15 units do. Those windows are great, according to the residents. Unfortunately, they are not open. They are, not closed 24/7. They are open most of the time now. And those residents are really suffering for what's going on with the loading dock. The loading dock, and again, I'm here, I've read the entire 71 page of Hoag proposal. It was mind-boggling. I appreciate one thing I must say, because of the noise that we have with the traffic on the service road. Hoag, of all the requests we've made regarding the noise, is considering hump bumps. I ask for speed bumps. They are making it an option. It is not an option. It must be installed to slow the traffic. Since Hoag has opened their access road from Pacific Coast Highway, the service road has become a racetrack. I have witnessed cars speeding down the service road between 25 and 30 miles an hour. Motorcycles come flying up the road, rave their engine as they get up to Hospital Road, make a right or left or whatever. So we do have all of this going on. And again, I'm here on behalf of the owners.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm
Your
sorry.
time is up. Yes, thank you very much.
And I have my sound meter, by the way, for which I recorded. City Council, you have a whole package to review.
Thank you.
I'd appreciate if you do that.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Are there any other speakers? Please come forward at this time. If you're going to speak, please come forward so that you're ready to go each time.
Good
Yes,
evening,
ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My name is Marilyn Tabor. I live at Versailles. I've been a resident of Versailles, an owner of Versailles, since 1979, when Hoag was just a small little community hospital. We have 255 units in Versailles. I'm on the board of directors, by the way, of Versailles. We have 255 units, and we are suffering. And we hope that Hoag would be more responsive to our pleas and also to Villa Balboa's requests to do something to mitigate the noise level that we all have to suffer with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor Curry and members of the council. My name is Dick Runyon. I'm a resident of Villa Balboa and co-chair of our Hoag Liaison Committee. I'm here to report tonight on three elements: items that have been completed that are affected by the development agreement, items that are in progress, and finally those that require some remaining action. First, to the lower campus, where the parking area is just to the to the east of the cogen plant. I'm happy to report that the view plane storage containers have all been removed. The green screen around the projects has all been removed. The power poles have been removed, and the affected parking area has been resurfaced and striped, and it looks terrific. In progress, as you may know, the east side of the cogen plant has scheduled ivy to be going up the side of the plant to do our best to create a green screen. A portion of that, the northern portion, is doing very well. The southern portion is progressing, and Hoag has agreed to encourage by cultivation and fertilizing the soil to enhance that in the year coming forward. The hedge in front of the 280 Cagney building along the bike path has been trimmed and is scheduled for regular trimming going forward. Dead and dying plants are planned to be replaced in the next 30 to 60 days. The lower campus parking lot trees Many of the trees have not developed as Hoag had hoped, and the canopy of trees effect has not been accomplished yet. However, Hoag has, in the last 2 weeks, planted half a dozen new trees, taking out old trees. This appears to be a work in progress. Hoag will monitor this, and assuming the new trees do better, it's my understanding that they would plan to replace the rest of the trees, moving towards the completion of the canopy of trees effect. There is one type of tree that suffers a great deal of stress during this time of year. Hoag has informed us that they're monitoring this, and there are plans, if they don't develop more in the years ahead, they will replace those as well. Again, this is to accomplish the canopy of trees effect. Finally, we're still hoping to make additional accomplishments. The lighting intensity, which has been an issue that you've heard us speak to before, remains excessive. The suggested intensity of the lights that are just on the north side of the cancer center, we've suggested might be a possibility. The lot is not used between the hours of 7 p.m. and 5 a.m., totally unoccupied. We're hopeful, and Hoag has agreed to consider the possibility of some different type of lighting, maybe LED lighting, and should that take place, I think that could help to solve the problem. We suggested, in conclusion here, to consider a gate entry to the parking lot to prohibit all traffic at night that would allow the lights to be turned off. Secondly, to reduce the lighting during the hours of 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. And finally, to eliminate the lighting perhaps on half of the lights during the night to also reduce the intensity. I'm happy to report that the relationship that we've been working with Kerry Brooks and Greg Zoll has been very fruitful, and we're making significant progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Appreciate those comments. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Ross Robato. I live at 260 Cagney Lane, and I've been there 30 years. And I've witnessed a lot of development and growth of Hoag. And I must say that they've tried their best to do what they can to accommodate our concerns. My building is the closest residential building to Hoag Hospital. Between my building, which is the 260 building, is a service road and about 15 feet of slope, which puts us very, very close to the operating area of Hoag. They've done a wonderful job in building the sound wall, I must say. The 280 building has to be very quiet. The 280 building is opposite the number 1 loading dock. And the sound wall is at some point 30 feet high there. So there's no problem there. However, when they continued up for the 260 building, they stopped short of the dietary loading dock. Now, the dietary loading dock, in my estimation, because I've taken sound readings, dB readings, is much, much louder than the number 1 loading dock. The number 1 loading dock is open to the air. The dietary loading dock is like a funnel situation, and anything that happens in that dock is blasted through like a trumpet. I think in the initial study of this, we fell short, or somebody fell short, of extending that wall to at least cover the dietary loading dock noise. If that is done, there's a lot of problems that would be eliminated, because that's where most of the noise is coming from. We know that there's emergency vehicles, that's only temporary. We know that they download chemicals, that's a temporary thing. That's not our concern. It's the everyday use of that dietary loading dock that's creating a lot of problems. Please take that in consideration. We are the closest residential unit to Hoag. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this matter? All right, seeing none, there is a representative from Hoag here. Would you like to make any comments about what you've heard tonight? Please come forward. And then we'll take it back to the council.
Good evening. My name is Kerry Brooks, Senior Project Manager with Hoag. Thanks for the time this evening. And the Versailles folks were gracious enough a couple of times to have me over and talk about the issues at hand, which are real. We understand that. A couple of things we've done, and it's challenging always, but regarding the fire alarms. There were a number of alarms, especially over the last several months or couple of years, really, where a lot of construction was going on. Much of the construction is complete. That combined with the fact that we've redesigned and re-engineered our fire alarm system to minimize the calls that they would hear at night. In the past...
Just before you, I don't understand.
I'm sorry.
Are there fire alarms, actual fire alarms going on?
Yeah, we do testing.
And for what? Oh, for your
testing? Well,
testing?
we do both testing and when we do construction projects, and we've had a number in the past, often the work in a construction effort or zone will trigger an alarm accidentally, but these folks unfortunately had to hear that. So what we've done is segregate all the buildings on campus, so when we have an issue on a building on the east side of the campus, the buildings facing these folks will not be alarmed at all. So that should help quite a bit, we believe. There's also an alarm outside of the code, one of the building, the facility we're talking about, the plant, and that's a mandate by code. That's the one they were referring to. We've talked to fire here, and that's a code requirement for that bell. So we tried to go with the strobe, and that unfortunately didn't work out. But we're working hard to minimize the sound in that way. On the road itself, we're trying to aggressively manage traffic there to the best of our ability. We put all new graphic signage up to eliminate idling and to direct people to slow down, and the signage just recently went up. We've also engaged our security department to be more aggressive to watch early mornings because the trucks honestly do come before 7 and they sit there and idle. So what we've done is engage, again, our security team, to minimize that in the mornings, to make sure trucks are not sitting there idling, which is very annoying. And that's a challenge, I know. We had an acoustical engineer study the area, and he did do what's called Versailles here, or the Versailles tennis courts. They're really the Villa Balboa tennis courts, but it's facing Versailles to add to the report. And according to what we're seeing here, the report, and what I heard from the engineer is that the sounds meet requirements by code, such as they do all the way down
Again, the question, you're monitoring the tennis courts?
Well, we asked them to, not the tennis courts themselves, but to monitor sound along the tennis courts because right behind them are the Versailles properties. So the source of the sound can be heard at Versailles. So the engineer took readings in that area along Hoag West Road.
Okay. So there was, but that was the only one in the vicinity of Versailles that was taken?
That's correct. Yeah, up on that side. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
I have
sorry,
a
we
question.
have some more questions.
The dietary loading dock. The dietary loading dock, that's what I wrote down. That's what I thought he said was very noisy.
We had two loading docks. The one, when we were here initially for the work in the day, and the sound wall that was constructed was designed by a team of engineers based on acoustical studies and the work we've all done here in Newport Beach. That will address the main loading dock on the southern side of the campus. At that time, all the engineering reports suggested that the dietary loading dock was not an issue going forward. So our development agreement did not include any work beyond the limits of where it sits today, which is just south of the dietary loading dock.
Has there been a change in activity at the dietary loading dock?
Not to my knowledge. It's still, the bed count hasn't changed in the hospital, and we've actually not grown, so there's no increased demand that I know of there that would cause that.
And what happens at that loading dock? What are you loading?
Generally, like it says, it's trucks, food products are brought in and taken out, things like that. The loading dock to the south is actually the noise. That's where the bigger trucks come in for equipment and gear and all sorts of things. But the smaller loading dock to the north, the dietary, is primarily for food product to be brought in. It's right near the kitchen.
And like how many trips a day?
I don't know. I can find out, but I don't know offhand.
And then, I wasn't finished. Sorry. They mentioned also traffic. Is there a sense that maybe with your very noteworthy efforts to improve things for Balboa Cove, that the traffic is now impacting Versailles more than it was before? Have we shifted some of the problems in the course of doing good in one area?
I'm not sure. I can't be sure that the count has changed. One thing I thought would reduce the count is we used to have between Hoag West Road and Hoag East Road, the road at the south entrance, which provided cross traffic. So that's been eliminated. So that road that previously connected Hoag West and Hoag East has been literally eliminated at Hoag West Road. So part of our thought was initially that would reduce significantly the traffic count entering Hoag West Road, whether they went north or south. So I think the traffic counts because of that may have gone down, not, certainly respecting what Versailles folks have said.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor Curry. Upon my recent election to the City Council, I reached out to all of the homeowner associations in this area, including Versailles, and I've yet to hear back, and I would strongly encourage you to let's get together and let's talk about stuff like this, because this kind of catches me flat-footed as the District 2 representative. I'd like to talk to you about these matters as we move forward. When we do talk about the sound metering that was done around the tennis courts, I'm looking at a Google map, an aerial of that, and in fact, if you monitor sound at the tennis courts, you are closer to the hospital and the loading zone than any of the units, as I see it from this aerial map, so you are getting a higher reading there. And in fact, when I looked at the acoustical study, which I understand and comprehend, you're about 6 to 8 dB under the thresholds. That's not to say it's not loud, but it is not exceeding the thresholds that are set by the development agreement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Any other questions for Mr. Brooks? Thank you, Mr. Brooks. We'll bring it back to the City Council for discussion or a motion.
From this, I understand, because I do think it sounds like we need some more communication, and you're going to take the lead on that with this group and make sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I would move the findings of the city, the staff that the development agreement has been complied with.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming down and sharing your thoughts with us. It's very much appreciated, and hopefully we'll be able to be helpful to you on these issues. Thank you. The next item is item 13, the review of the request for the RFP for the residential solid waste program. Mr. Kiff or Mr. Harmon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. So this item returns to you from our study session of about a month or 6 weeks ago, where we discussed a proposed concept for a request for proposals that would go out to examine our residential refuse collection system. You gave us some guidance at that meeting to look at different aspects of what that RFP would say and then to return to you. So we hope we've taken that to heart. We do have it on your agenda for your further discussion. And then if you agree with that, we would go ahead and submit that. As I say that, I want to recognize this is a very challenging issue to deal with. We have great employees. They work very hard. It's a tough job. It's a well-loved service. But you did ask you asked me specifically to look at all aspects of what we do to make sure we're doing it efficiently and cost-effectively. We may find in the end that there isn't a better system than the current system that we have now, but I think it's incumbent upon us to look at that. So with that, we do have a PowerPoint that's the same one that's in your staff report. I'd be happy to, or Mark would be happy to go over that briefly if that's helpful to you.
Anyone like to hear the presentation? All right, well, I think we'll hold on the presentation. We may need it later. Be ready to go.
I had a question on it, though.
Councilmember Gardner.
We are still asking for approximately 40% diversion rate. And yet, one of the rationales we've been talking about is that we are going to have in the future a much higher percentage that we have to meet. So are we thinking that we're going to make that up in commercial? Or why are we not trying to set the bar higher?
That better? There we go. We certainly can increase that diversion requirement from 40%. I think where that came from is that we were trying to take a kind of more of an apples-to-apples approach and look at the existing program, trying to mirror that with a new contract. I will be honest with you, I kind of struggled with that a little myself. I I think it's certainly doable to take that maybe up to that 50% level. Though commercial is it's the majority, as your report, the study showed, your commercial weight is the majority of the weight coming out of the city, and that program is helping us reach our diversion goals.
Since we didn't have a presentation, let me sort of just summarize for the audience the two approaches that are being promulgated here and that we're asking the private sector to bid on. One option is to pick up trash exactly like it's been picked up today. You get to pick what kind of can you want. You get to put it out on the street with all the other stuff that you put out with it. They will pick it up, and it will look exactly like it is today. The second option is where you get to pick the size of the can you want to have, but it will be a uniform can. And if you want to, and only if you want to, you will have the option of putting out a can that includes recyclables. And while that will be somewhat more standardized, and it may very well offer additional options, concierge service, if you are infirmed and you want somebody to go in your backyard, maybe they will, for an additional fee, do that for you. They will continue to pick up the other things that you put out on the curb, but it will be somewhat more standardized because you'll have to use, of your own choosing, a standardized can. I think those are the primary differences. Mr. Kiff, are there anything maybe that I missed in describing that option as well?
No, you identified both, including that you could have as many cans or carts as you wanted.
Right.
But I thought there was one other thing. The service for handicapped individuals would be that's not for extra charge. That's to be.
Well, that wasn't that bid separately as concierge, under concierge.
It is. And your report, the PowerPoint, talked about core services and then what we call enhanced services. And the handicap concierge service, we did ask for a quote from the company when they make their proposal what that cost would be, if
But
anything.
that service is not for an extra charge to the homeowner. Right, we're not talking about charging the homeowner.
No, there's no charges to the homeowner.
So it's free to the homeowner.
Absolutely.
There's handicap.
There's no.
You all have it. I'm just too busy to take out my trash.
Well, no, it usually requires some kind of a, handicap
like getting a handicap
placard
sticker.
or something. Yeah, we probably won't take your word for it.
Oh, well, thanks.
Well, your word, maybe.
Of course. I had another question, just a concern as we go down the road, which is this thing of the elective separation. It seems like if we have to have two trucks, because maybe we have a whole block that everybody's separating except one person who just is too busy, then we all have to have two trucks coming down. And that just seems to me so foolish that we would either have separation or we wouldn't. And I know that's something that we can decide down the road, and we're trying to get apples to apples bids. But I see that as an issue, certainly.
So in your example, then, if you only had one person on the block that was separating, arguably the proposers, just like we would do, we might send down a different truck. It could be a much smaller truck to pick that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Mr. Petros.
To your point about the service, Mayor Curry, I was impressed when I read the RFP that the level of core services clearly are indicated as being at the same level that the citizens currently experience and enjoy. And then all of the other parts of the proposal I thought were the RFP were very clear. I did have two questions, though. On the page 1, it says that two paths the city is seeking proposals for. The proposer may propose to provide on either or both. I was under the impression that we wanted to get proposers to give us proposals for both, not to be able to select. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I can, Councilmember Petros. What we've done here is there may be companies, we're trying to open it up to as many companies as we can, and there may be companies that can bid the two-cart automated but not have nor a desire to purchase the type of equipment it would take to do the work we do today. So we've given companies the option, if they want to just bid on the automated, make proposals on path 2, and not Path 1 because they can't do the work. It would be it'd be a cost burden to go out and purchase rear loader trucks to manually collect trash, so we've given that option. I would venture a strong guess that most companies will bid on both because they don't want to lose the opportunity if council picks a direction.
The only other thing that I had in here as I read the RFP, on page 9, it said that the proposer may use the transfer facility, which would imply unfettered use of it, and then in the subsequent page it says that the proposer can purchase back excess capacity on the transfer facility. I would just encourage you to maybe take a look at those two pages, 9 and 10, to make sure that it's clear to the proposers what you intend.
Okay, will do.
I have a couple of questions here. On page 3, we have what is commonly known as a gag clause, and Mr. Kiff, did you have some changes you were going to make on that?
Yeah, I tried to look at that realistically. I know even before this point, the companies will communicate with you, and if they don't, they may hire people to do that. I think it's unreasonable to assume that's not going to occur and draw a fine line, so it would be my recommendation that that not be in the RFP.
I would agree with that. And then on page 9, we make reference to holiday tree collection from December 26th to January 15th. The only holiday I'm aware of that involves trees is Christmas. Can we be less politically correct and call it what it is a Christmas tree collection?
We certainly can.
Thank you. Are there any further Councilmember Davis?
A couple questions for you, Mark. Santa Ana Heights was annexed. I think we did east and west, 2006 timeframe. That's now served by a private contractor. Is there some reason Santa Ana Heights isn't included in this whole bid?
There is. The rule, or the law, I guess, is that once an area is annexed, if the city wants to move to provide service to that area, there is a 10-year notice that must be given to the existing hauler, and that's not been done. So if it is the council, it's kind of a separate issue than this, but if the council does want to make that happen, again, it would take action, a notice to let staff know to notice the company, which I believe is CR&R, to notice them that in 10 years that contract will expire.
Okay. And then as far as the transfer station and utilizing that on an increasing basis, will we have to get any permit amendments to do that? I mean,
No.
So there's no cap on the amount of trash we can bring in and out of that station?
Yeah, good question. Let me explain that. And I'm glad you brought that up because there's a typo in here. I think there's a few pages, I don't remember what they are, 10 and 19. It says 340 tons is the permitted capacity. That is wrong. It's 300 tons. So we'll make that correction as well. But the cap is 300 tons. The city currently is using approximately 130 to 140 tons. So we have a capacity of about 170 tons per day in that station. What the RFP is calling for, once they use the 130, 140 tons for the city material, they can lease that station from the city for a year and use that extra capacity for commercial waste or other waste that they collect. It's unused capacity right now, and there's a value to that capacity,
Right.
and so we're including that as part of the RFP.
Okay, so we're capped at 300 tons.
We
and
are.
Fully permitted.
Fully permitted.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing if there's no other council comments, let me open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak on this matter? Please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor Curry and members of the council. My name is Jim Mosier. First, I wanted to say I think the goals about diversion percentages in this proposal are rather misleading. There was a time back in the 1980s that the state set a goal of 50% diversion to be achieved in 10 years or something like that. But since the problem was people just produced more trash. So if all you have is a percentage, there's more stuff going to the landfill, even though you're achieving the percentage. Since 2007, I believe it is, the goal has been to reduce the amount per person per day coming out of our city to below a certain limit. And as we heard, most of that is not the curbside trash, so the hauler doesn't really have any control over that. And I wanted to say, I think another thing that's misleading is if the process is being driven by the specter of the high cost of converting the city's trash collection fleet to natural gas and the savings that would be reaped by selling it instead, I think that also means the process is being driven by an illusion. According to the RFP, we have 14 trucks, each with a useful lifespan of 10 years, and in the normal course of things, 4 of those have already been replaced by natural gas trucks. And when the time comes to replace the remaining 10, from what I've heard, the slightly higher upfront cost will be more than offset by the savings in fuel cost for operating them. So just like we are changing streetlights to LEDs, a prudent city would be doing that anyway. It's not an unexpected thing. It's just a normal operating cost. And whether there's savings or expense related, the proposer to this RFP presumably is just going to be charging that back to us, whatever it is. And if they can magically supply the trucks and the labor to operate them at a cost less than we're doing now, it's not obvious that we should be hiring consultants in RFPs, but rather just asking ourselves what we're doing wrong and why we couldn't match those costs. The part of the RFP inviting the respondents to lease or expand the transfer station at the corporate yard is also confusing to me, because I thought it was about 2 years ago we heard this council had grand plans for building a new police headquarters and a community center on that property. And we heard a little bit about the transfer station at that time. I'm not sure the plan is a good plan, but promising that for expanding trash use seems kind of incompatible to me. And finally, as to what Councilwoman Gardner was saying about the voluntary recycling program, I think the respondents should be asked to explain very clearly how they plan to implement that. Councilwoman Gardner sees that as 2 trucks. I would see it as requiring 3, because you need 1 truck to pick up the stuff that is designated as recyclable, 1 that people have carefully put away as needing to go to the landfill, and a 3rd to pick up the many containers that the people are too lazy to sort and it needs further processing. And I think we need a more creative solution than that.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the council. Is there a motion or other comment?
I'll move the item.
Motion, is there a second?
Second that.
Motion and second. Before we vote, I'd like to speak to our employees and for the employees on this item, because we have worked hard to do most, if not all, of our downsizing in our city through attrition, minimizing layoffs and minimizing the personal impacts to the dedicated, hard-working staff we have. If no other fact has come out of this process, it is the tremendous respect, enthusiasm, and support that our waste haulers enjoy in the community. It is well-deserved by their own personal initiative, and everyone in this city appreciates the great job that they do. And I know that the city manager has appreciated the willingness of our refuse collection staff to work with us on this issue. Several of them have already opted for an early retirement incentive, and others may be able to be placed in other good city jobs, and indeed we're actively looking to find those jobs and identify them. There may be some of our workers who may wish to retire and work for a company doing, in essence, the same thing on the same streets and perhaps even on the same truck. We are committed, and this RFP requires the winning bidder to at least make an offer of employment to all of our, to any of our employees who may be displaced. So there's lots of possibilities that are open to our employees, and I want everybody to know that you have my personal commitment and that of the council that we will work hard to continue in the same spirit of accommodation and compassion if, and I stress if, because there's no final decisions made, the city later decides to contract this service out. If there's no further discussion, please vote.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you. We'll go to the next item, which is the direction to staff relative to appointees serving on multiple boards, commissions, or committees.
I think this came about because of that we found out that we had somebody who was on two committees, and we had a general policy not to. And I think that's a good policy because we have so many people eager, so many of our residents are so eager to serve, and they're so able to serve. However, in looking at what staff has prepared, I do see a distinction between our committees and our commissions and a bid. The bids, you're grasping for people to serve on the board, and to have someone sitting on the, say, the CDM bid and the Restaurant Association bid, there isn't a conflict there. I mean, there isn't a competition factor there. But I do think our committees and commissions should be, you serve one and you make your choice if for some reason you are up for two. So I'm not sure quite how we would word that, but that would be my recommendation.
We can take in, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, we can take individual votes if you'd like on Tom Anderson and Carl Cassidy if you'd like, and leave the remainder of the bids.
I talked to Carl, and he would step down from EQUAC, and he would like to remain on the Coastal Bay water quality.
Nancy, just to be clear then, you would say the first two items here are ones that we would consider where we'd ask somebody to choose one or the other, and the rest of them, I completely agree with you. I think the rest of them is fine. So maybe we can vote on everything but the first two.
It would actually only be Thomas Anderson. My original staff report with Ralph Rodheim, he was serving on BVAC as a member of the bid. So he's serving there as a selected member.
Yeah, I
So it
know.
would be a vote on Tom Anderson's.
Well, I think we need to vote on all of them, don't we, to allow the conflict?
Well, I guess the question is, the first question is, do we want to maintain our policy of that you can only be on one committee or commission? And I guess I never in my mind think of the bids in the same way as I think of our committees and commissions. So maybe can we make a distinction there, Mr. City Attorney?
Yeah, I think what you do is you just want to vote on what you have before tonight. If you want to leave the bids alone, then that can be one vote. If you want to vote on the other ones separately, that can be a separate vote.
Then that's what I would move, that we maintain our policy that you can only have one position. You can only serve on one board or commission or committee. You may not serve on two.
And
Agree with that.
And that the bids, any conflict relating to a bid is not considered to be a violation of the policy.
Right.
And do we understand that to be things like special event committees, those would also be exempt because those would involve people in a particular neighborhood or like the 4th of July?
I think why don't we take that on a case-by-case basis, because there'll be some where we'll say, for example, with the Tidelands Management Committee, we have said we want a harbor commissioner on there, and we specifically made that clear.
Well, that's a panel. That's not a commission.
Well, I know, but I mean, in that case, as a special event committee came up, we may say, yeah, we need this person, and we'd like a representative from this committee, but to make it as a blanket policy, we probably don't need to.
I think overall, the overall policy is not before the City Council this evening. It's really just these people where there is, a potential conflict. So I think it's good to have general direction regarding how we apply it going forward, but really all that needs to be decided tonight is what we're going to do with these individuals.
All right, so can you restate your motion again, please?
Well, then the motion I made, I can't. Because I was just saying we will support the... my motion will be that Mr. Anderson and Mr. Cassidy may only serve on one, and they must make a choice and tell us as soon as, within 2 weeks, so we can set up the next round of appointments.
So I can advertise.
I will second that motion.
All right, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this matter? Okay.
Mayor Curry and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosher. I don't know if I would be adding clarity, and sometimes I'm wrong about these things. My recollection is Policy A2 actually didn't say you couldn't be on two committees, but it was two standing committees, and the important thing was if there were committees or boards, commissions with a standing, if that is going on in time, not just a very temporary one, And in connection with that, and I just heard the discussion but didn't follow entirely what the answer was, the question I was going to ask was about the Tidelands Management Committee, which was reconstituted on the consent calendar as item number 3, and it does have it is now a standing committee, and it has within it a standing body that, as Councilwoman Daigle said, is not quite a board, commission, or committee. It's a citizens advisory panel. One person is on there intended to be representing the Harbor Commission ex officio, but the other 6 are not. So I'm wondering if any thought has been given, maybe this is not the appropriate time, as to whether those other 6 people should be people who are not on some other standing committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, did you wish to make a comment?
I agree with the comments that the bids are really independent activities. I guess I challenged one of the initial premises. It seems that as we have sought appointments most recently, we've had not enough applicants. We have not met our policy of having 2 applicants for
We
every
may not have met the
position.
2, but we've always had more than just one for a position.
My memory is worse than I thought it was then. Because we've held items open because we don't have enough applicants to vote on. My memory's not as bad as I thought. I guess where I'm going with this is that it seems to me that the reality is that our goal would be to have not an individual serve on more than one at a time. But by having that as a set policy, then we have to change that policy or waive it every time we have a different condition. So when we talk about the broad policy, and I think we should, I think it should come back to us, maybe it should be something along the line that it is our priority that someone not serve on more than one, but if we found a reason where we felt that was appropriate, that we had the right to do that without having to waive a policy. That's probably way too many words, but maybe you get the gist of what I'm trying to say.
We are bringing back the council policy manual, I believe, and then either at the next meeting or at the second meeting in May. So maybe we can make some more global changes at that time to the overall policies. And so we'll queue those up for your consideration.
Okay.
Mayor Curry.
Mr. Petros.
I'm not always the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm reading policy A2 right now, and it seems abundantly clear to me, and we don't need to change it. It says that appointees shall serve on only one standing city board, commission, or committee at any time. This provision may be waived by a majority vote of the city council. That seems very clear that we have the discretion to waive that at any time that we wish. And it's clear to me that bids are not considered to be a board, commission, or committee. So I think that this is a tempest in a teapot and is affecting really only one of these individuals.
Well, and I would say to Tom Anderson, who does an outstanding job on Parks and Recreation, that he brings specific airport expertise and a history in airport activism. So I see, frankly, little reason to take him off solely to comply with a policy that's somewhat arbitrary.
Is there a motion?
Yes, my motion was that the 2 of them be told they have to be on choose one committee. So we'll vote on that, I guess, and then you can make a different one if it doesn't pass.
Tom is District 3 also, isn't
I believe he is.
Tom is District 3, yeah. I would hate to lose him on the Aviation Committee, just for...
Yeah, as we noticed, we have vacancies as it is.
I will offer a substitute motion that we will waive the policy on behalf of Tom, and who's the other one, Carl Cassidy? Carl Cassidy's already resigned, so we don't need to do that for him. Just
He
Tom.
hasn't officially resigned. I haven't.
So there's just one vote that, the policy doesn't apply to the other members that are here, so it's
Yes.
one comprehensive vote.
Yeah.
So we are now voting on Tom Anderson being on the 2 committees?
It's a substitute motion that does everything yours does, except it provides a waiver for Tom Anderson to serve on both Aviation and Parks and Rec.
Is there a second?
Pursuant to A2. Mr. Hill seconded. Further discussion? All right, so we're voting now on the substitute motion that keeps Tom Anderson on both. But and then allows the other folks to also serve on both that are on bids or other committees.
Except for, what about Carl?
Carl is not included in this motion because I understand from Councilmember Gardner that he has resigned, or resigned from one of them. Or planning to. Please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem. Okay. With Councilmember Daigle voting no, the motion...
No, excuse me. That's
Gardner voting
Councilmember
no.
Gardner.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Gardner. My apologies. Voting no, the motion carries 6-1.
Okay, motion for reconsideration.
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Okay, seeing no motions for reconsideration, we have two adjournments tonight. The first is for a friend of many of us, Robert Bernard Broger, better known as Bob, passed away April 9th at 11:51, having been diagnosed with stage 4 esophageal cancer in November of 2012. Bob fought well and hard through the subsequent 4 months, but succumbed to the cancer. Bob led an amazing life, establishing himself as a Newport Beach fixture. He served voluntarily at Mariners Church since its inception in 1965. And many of us knew Bob because he came here and led the invocations on many occasions in the City Council chambers. He established he was a public relations manager for several companies and then established his own Broger Group, and then later went on to become a pastor at Mariners Church. He's survived by his wife of 45-plus years, Yoli Broger, as well as his two children, Clark, age 41, and Joy, age 39. He is going to be missed by all who knew him. His memorial service will be at Mariners Church April 29th. And then finally, the unthinkable happened last week, and it happened twice. Hundreds of lives were changed forever as a result of the bombings at the Boston Marathon finish line and the industrial accident in the town of West Texas. The attack in Boston claimed 3 lives and wounded 140 people. Within days, a police officer was shot and killed by the bombing suspects as well. The country was again stunned just 2 days later when a fertilizer plant exploded in the town of West Texas, decimating a portion of that small community. 14 people were killed, 11 of which were first responders, and 200 people were injured. About 75 homes were damaged. Please keep the victims and their families in your thoughts and prayers, and let us also remember the selfless response of the citizen volunteers and police, fire, and medical professionals who put their well-being and the well-being of others ahead of their own, and how these communities rallied to support the victims and their public safety professionals. We adjourn tonight in the memory of the Boston and the West Texas victims and in honor of those who served them.
My daughter-in-law and granddaughter were at the finish line.
Oh, my God.